Welcome back to the Educational Currency. I'm Robert Namoski, the proprietor of the Coaching College and founder of the Ultimate Jiu-Jitsu.
I'm Chris Kalodikis from Maximum Education. What are we doing today, Rob?
I don't know, Chris, you have a pretty big smile on your face, young man. Something very interesting. I think you've got. You think you've got some good news, mate?
I've got some very good news. Well, look, today we're going to be talking about HALT Accreditation, Highly Accomplished Lead Teacher Education, which is very relevant at the moment because, as Rob alluded to by my smile, I just became a highly accomplished teacher.
So, on our podcast, we have a highly accomplished teacher.
That's
well
it.
done.
No, thank you, Rob.
Now, that's quite a feat. That is, really.
Well, look, it was quite a grueling procedure to go through, okay? And look, it kind of marries in well with what we've been showing this season. Our focus this season has been talking to teachers at different points of their career. What this highly accomplished lead teacher standards do for you is obviously it gives you some acknowledgement in your career, and it's something that I know many educators are looking at, you know, to kind of get recognised for where they are at their point of their career and the great work that they're doing.
So just for our general audience, give us a rundown on the professional teacher standards. What levels are there?
So basically, there is the Australian Professional Standards and of Teaching levels. And there's 4 levels, okay? You've got your graduate, which is what you are when you first leave university. And that's kind of like a probationary level. I think it's within your 3 to 5 years. Yeah. You've got to then do your final report and then become the next level, which is that of a proficient teacher. Now, when you're a proficient teacher, you can stay a proficient teacher for your whole career.
But that's where most teachers are at.
That is where most
people... Like you could, 95%, 99% of teachers...
99% of
teachers are proficient teachers.
Okay, that's where most teachers will be. And this stuff has been in place for 20 years, okay, since I was a graduate. And that's why I think it's really good to talk about what these higher levels are. And that's where we're all
so after proficient... And it doesn't mean that they're bad. I mean, a proficient teacher is a very, very good teacher.
Yeah, that's it.
But then so 20 years ago, the government brought on something more than a proficient teacher.
So basically they brought in these 2 higher levels. Now, the one level is higher than the other, but you don't have to go in order to get both levels. So the next level that's above proficient is the one that I actually got, and that's this highly accomplished level. So that's a teacher who pretty much works with other teachers, mentors other teachers, works beyond their school in supporting the wider community in the teaching realm. All right, so that would be considered the 3rd highest level. And then at the top is lead teacher. Okay, and then your lead teacher is those teachers creating policies and infrastructure and like really working at that high level in education.
So lead teacher sounds like the management.
Yeah, well, look, upper management. I consider highly accomplished, like, as you know, I'm a leader of wellbeing at my school, and that kind of sat me in well to go for that level. So teachers who are like leaders of faculties or, you know, in a middle manager wellbeing role, it'd probably be them that'd be looking at that highly accomplished level. And then if you are on a college leadership team, or, you know, potentially a principal or an assistant principal, then you've probably got enough under your belt to go for that lead area. But then I think that's where one of the first criticisms of the process is, why would you go for that if you're already there, you know, as an incentive of why you'd go for higher levels?
Well, you've got definitely experience on highly accomplished.
Yeah.
So what is the highly accomplished accreditation?
So highly accomplished accreditation, so essentially it was organised, and as I said, about 20 years ago, because they want to make teaching levels feel like they are more professional. So they brought in these standards that we've all got to achieve. And so all teachers have a taste of these standards, whether when they're a graduate or if they are maintaining their professional competency, they're always trying to achieve across these 7 standard levels. Okay, so there are 7 levels of standards, and then within those levels are multiple elements.
Yes.
In order to become highly accomplished or lead, you had to do higher levels of those standards. There's 37 of them across those 7 levels. So there's quite a lot. Okay. And then
is there still 37 or did they change it?
Well, so there's still 37, but in order to achieve this certification, you only have to show 20 now. That just changed at the end of last year.
But you did all 37.
Well, so I did all 37 until my 3rd module, and they told me we're only looking at 20 now. And so I'd already finished by that point and I was caught in the changeover, and wasn't that a delightful experience? Okay, so I was quite not happy with that news, with the timing of that news, but I was happy that it's going to make it more accessible. And I think that's the important message we're going to try to get across today. Like, if you're ever on the fence about it in the past, well, now's probably a good time to get in, because it is only 20 standards now you've got to show, and you've only got to deliver 2 modules, whereas when I did it was 3 modules. But I'll get more into those specifics, okay, as we talk through this.
So, but in this case, at what point in a teacher's career do you recommend they go for it? What made you decide? Okay, I'm going to actually put so much effort into get this, and what are the benefits?
Well, look, it was always on my mind. I graduated in 2006, I think. I don't know. End of 2005, started working in 2006. I was the first cohort under these standards. So we were the first graduate teachers, and then the proficient teachers to come into, the New South Wales standards. All right. So I've always known of them, and so it was always intriguing to me. Okay, I want to work up these high levels. The 2 things that I wanted out of doing this was, firstly, opportunity. Okay, the reason that you do it, because it is accredited to all teachers, it gives me a recognition beyond the system I work in. So beyond working in a private school or a Sydney Catholic school or a public school, it comes across all of them. Okay, this comes with me no matter what system I work in. So I liked that. And then the other thing that I kind of wanted to lock in was what I've already done. I wanted to be recognized for all the work I already do in teaching. And by being labeled highly accomplished, well, it alludes to the fact when I go to an employer, this young man, old man, middle-aged man, I don't know what to describe myself these days.
Relative. To me, young man.
But he works hard. He works hard, and kind of shows that. Now, there are other reasons I'd recommend it too as well. Okay, one of the things I would say that I didn't get into it because it wasn't actually at the point when I started, wasn't a thing, but now it is. There are financial incentives now. When we had the enterprise agreements change in 2023, middle managers could either get extra pay or they get their pay from their system for what they're doing. Now it stacks on top of each other as a part of that new enterprise agreement, which means if you're a middle manager, you will get paid more if you do get a highly accomplished or lead teacher recognition.
Middle manager meaning head teacher.
Yeah, so you're head of a faculty or a leader of well-being there, okay? And look, I think there is a push for it now, because if I actually refer to why they want to have this HALT accreditation in place. Firstly, they want teachers to feel like they're recognized for their excellence. So it's in that incentive that if you stay in teaching and pursue it and you go through these paths, you'll be recognized as being this higher standard. Okay, and giving you an enhanced status, which gives you more flexibility, okay, and can support your pay as well, because cost of living is high as well. So I think that's a good reason to get into it too. A key battle at the moment too is retaining talented teachers. There are teachers who obviously, it could be for lifestyle choices, it could be for financial reasons, but talented teachers do leave the profession because they do either need to make more money or they need to be there for their families. Okay, was this kind of status associated with it and potential extra pay could potentially keep someone in the classroom and teaching. And I'm all supportive of that, which is one of the reasons I want to promote it today.
It's important to get it's nice getting an acknowledgement as well.
Yeah.
Like sets you apart. I mean, you do all that extra work. You put in so much heart and passion into it.
Yeah.
And having something from NESA to actually acknowledge that it's very rewarding.
100%. Look, I tell you what, like when it came through that I finally got this, and look, it wasn't easy. It was not easy. I'm never going to emphasize it was easy, and I'm not going to say it's for everyone. In fact, the people at NESA, when I was talking to them and when it was looking shaky a few times, I heard that to me a few times. This is not for everyone. You can be a very proficient teacher throughout your career. Okay, this is not for everyone. It's if you believe you are trying to push beyond the classroom and you see yourself as an educator beyond the classroom, okay, and you're networking, you're working with other teachers, you're innovative and all that, that's when you're looking at these areas. And then when you actually do get accredited at that level, you could not wipe the smile off my face. Okay?
Still smiling now.
I am still smiling about it, okay? But it is rigorous.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a lot to it. But yeah, so I am at that point now where I can smile and it's behind, and hopefully in a few years' time, I don't think NESA want to hear from me for a while, but maybe in 5 years' time, I might look at the lead teacher, because even what we're doing right now on this podcast, I believe is a lead teacher initiative, although that's no longer a part of the process too. And, but we'll get into that in a moment. But
so from start to finish, how long did it take you?
For me, and I took my time because I needed to take time. Like I said, I found it tough to do it. It probably took me 2.5 years to do.
Okay.
But I did do it in the old format where in my mind I was doing all 37 standards. I had to do lesson observations and internal observations, have a site visit, I took my time with it. And obviously I've kept myself very busy with other projects too over that 2 years as well. So it took me quite some time to complete, and the whole process changed while I was doing it as well. Now with its revised changes, I believe if you focus on it, you can do it within a year.
Okay, it's good to know.
But in saying that, the groundwork needs to be done before. Like, you've already had to be doing the highly accomplished stuff that you're going to be showing as evidence prior to you starting the procedure.
So teacher moves into the profession, just becomes proficient. In your opinion, how long should they be working as a proficient teacher before they could look at something like this? What time frame would you
give them?
Would you give them?
I would honestly say maybe about 10 years before looking at it. But I have heard scenarios where people, 5 years proficient, they went for it and got it. And I have no idea. I would love to have one of those people on here. But I heard there are some people who got there rather quickly, and were able to do it quickly. I believe for my own confidence, I needed to be in a middle management position first, because that helped me build up standards in the highly accomplished area that I could use as evidence. Because I was already communicating with families and networking and doing all of that. So with me, like technically I was 15 years into my career before I started the process, and I'm nearly at 20 now. Okay, so I think you need to have a bit on the belt. In your context, Rob, you've already got a lot of experience prior to coming into teaching. And
my situation's very different.
It's unique, but there are many other educators who are out there who've come from industry, and already are very experienced and have other types of networks too. So you probably wouldn't have to wait as long if you were looking at doing it too. But there are certain standards where it would be hard to show those things unless you are at some sort of middle management level, but not impossible, because it is doable.
Yeah, so like anything else in life, you need 10 years to actually have some level of mastery.
Yeah.
And this will give you putting in the effort, this will give you a recognition of that.
Yeah.
So with career advancement, where would you think this would give you an advantage?
The short answer is, I don't know.
Besides a bump in pay.
Besides a bump in, one of the reasons I wanted recognition and I wanted career advancement. And the thing is, you don't know where you're going in your career. So you want as much notches on the belt as you can have. Like as said in previous podcasts, I've done a master's in educational leadership before. After I did, my graduate certificates, I wanted to have as much on my belt because I want a bit of flexibility in my career. Like I love where I work, but if the time came where it's like, it's time for me to move on, this will help me, hopefully put me ahead of other candidates. When they say this guy's a highly accomplished educator, he works with other people, he'd be great to have on our team. So it could help me move between systems. I think it helps set me up if I ever did want to go into leadership too. I hope so. But then I think it depends on the school and system too and how much they acknowledge it. But it is from NESA, and they're pretty much top of the chain when it comes to education. They're the ones putting standards in place. Everyone has to be accredited with NESA. We pay our annual fees. So I'm hoping it has that weight between them. But I guess I'll find out, as we go.
Like we said before, just having that acknowledgement of your hard work is very rewarding, and it's more than rewarding. It motivates you.
It motivates you. It's a professional flex. It is. It's saying, look, I'm highly accomplished. I've done things. It is that notch on the belt. So that's really the reason. So hopefully it will help me with my career advancement. But I'm having my midlife crisis. I don't know, where am I going in my career?
Wait, you've got 10 more years till a midlife crisis, young boy.
I'm glad I've got you. I've got your mentorship and guidance, Rob.
My midlife crisis was a podcast. It's working well now.
It is working well. It is working very well.
So what's involved for it's for teachers moving in?
Yeah,
they've just started working. You're not really told about this.
Yeah,
in the profession,
and that's it. And look, I think that's why it was great to bring it up. During this current season where we're How do you actually do it? Because I'm sure that, as I said, I really want to speak to those teachers who are thinking about it, because the process has changed and it is easier now. So what's involved now is you are going to complete 2 modules with an external assessor doing a site visit in between. All right. Across the 2 modules, you've got to show 20 standards. All right. 20 standards at a highly accomplished level. Now, I'm not going to go specifically into what all the standards are. All right. Because we'd be here for a very long time, and I'm just going to be saying. But I will say one thing that is consistent across a lot of the highly accomplished standards, and that is the statements of the standards beginning with works with colleagues, supports colleagues, a lot of these kind of networking and communicative keywords. All right, so you've got to show evidence, not that you're just a fantastic classroom teacher. You've got to show that you're running meetings, you're showing things at workshops, you're on display. And if I can really highlight element 7, okay, and that's is the kind of speaks at professional associations, which is one of the mandatory ones. And I guess that's another thing I've got to talk about with these standards. So whereas there was the 37 standards in the past, with the 20 standards you've got to show now, 14 of them are mandatory. You've got to show 14 of them. Definitely all teachers going for highly accomplished have to show them. And they're across all 7. Okay, they're not all from one or the other. And then you can pick 6 as your elective standards. So if I had my choice now, I'd show a lot of the ICT ones, okay, as my ones, because that is my niche as a teacher, okay, and then do my best to show the 14 mandatory. But your starting point would be, look at those 14 mandatory standards, and do I already have things that I could show as evidence, okay? You don't want to be starting the process and then trying to run initiatives. You want to already have the initiatives in play and you're already doing it as part of the job, which is why I say if you're a middle manager, you probably already have a good starting point. So they are what you need to show. Now, within each module, what are you actually submitting? What you're submitting is known as an evidence set. Now, you are submitting about 3 evidence sets per module. When I did the 37 one, I had to do 4 evidence sets per module, which was about 15 standards across those evidence sets. Each evidence set, you'd be looking at 2 to 4 standards per evidence set, and you want them to kind of correlate with each other. Okay, so it could be that this evidence set that I'm submitting, this is all about my in-class assessment task, how I look at data, how I develop an assessment task, and then how I collaborate with peers to improve those assessment tasks. Okay, you could combine 3 modules there, and that's one of your evidence sets. And then your second evidence set that you're doing as a part of that module, in my context again, could be all about how I use ICT to enhance teaching, not just how I use it in teaching, but how it impacts my students, and then how I use it and show my peers how to use it as well and to improve their teaching practices. Now, this is the hard part. Impact, because I realize I just said that word there. Showing the impact of what you are doing, not just with your students, but how your colleagues are impacted. That is the hard part. So that I found, that was kind of my challenge as well when it came to submitting and resubmitting my tasks. It couldn't just be, look, he's a great teacher, look at those fantastic results here. How my colleagues were impacted. I'm very lucky that I had peers at other schools that were able to give me evidence of how they had internet set up at their school, and they used like my YouTube videos within their platforms. And so I got screenshots of that and put that into my evidence set.
So it was your work outside the school a lot?
A lot of it.
The YouTube platform, getting involved, especially with that, putting all your content online.
Yeah.
And how about being an author as well? Did they look at that, or?
I was able to bring that in right at the end. Okay. And once again, it was a flex, but it was hard to show impact because the book only just came out, but it was showing that I was involved in initiatives. Okay. So I guess that's another thing you do have to highlight, that you want to be doing project work and working on a number of initiatives so that you can show that you're working beyond your classroom. Okay. I think if you're a head of faculty, it might be a little bit easier because you're working on collaborative documents. So your scopes and sequences, your programs, assessment tasks with your faculty. And one of the things, one of the assessors actually worked with me, and I'm very thankful that people at NESA did reach out and help me finalize my actual module when really I was doubting myself at one point. But she actually showed me, you can actually get a collaborative document, open up the version history, and although you can't show any names of people, just black out the names, but show dates and different color schemes and show that number of people worked on that document together. And that shows that you are collaborating with peers. Okay, so if that number of people are working on the same document together, that's collaboration.
So this really sounds like if you're a head teacher, you could really fill this in quite, much easier than someone
that's just in the classroom.
Just in the classroom, because everything you're saying, it pretty much sounds like what the head teacher's doing.
Yeah, it does. So that's what I'm saying. It really does lean towards, if you're a head of faculty, you'll have a lot going for you. The other element is it can't just be within your school, because like I said, one of them is talking at professional associations and things like that. So you have to be going a bit beyond your school and, to get that kind of recognition as well. The actual other thing that came in as well with these, the changes as well that I'll highlight, which I wish I kind of had, but, for you new teachers out there that are going to be starting this as well, you can have a collaborative evidence set. So you can do one of your modules can show a group of teachers working together on specifically trying to get through it together. I think one of your modules can show collaborative data that you have been working as a team to achieve these higher levels of accreditation. So that is an excellent advantage you've got there. And then even from my own experience too, some of the standards are going to be hard to show and you're going to be like, I'm showing so much, but these last few are tough, and especially when I was 37. Okay, but now what NESA's done is they've set up NESA accredited workshops targeting these levels that will help you get those ones ticked off too. So that's another thing they've done with this new streamlined approach too. So keep an eye out for them. You can go to specific workshops that will help you achieve these higher level accreditations. So there is things in place. So if you plan it well, if you go through with a group of peers, it will be easier. And if you've got NESA's workshops there, that'll make getting some of them easier too. So there's a lot more in place that will hopefully set you up well. Just before we move on I will highlight the things that have been removed from the old method. So referees are apparently no longer needed, okay? And you still probably will need people working with you, but they get into contact with referees and all that. That system has changed, as well as internal observation reports from peers, okay? That seems to be a change as well. If you're going for lead teacher, the lead teacher initiative's gone, where you had to actually work on this lead teacher project. That no longer is a part of that process. Okay, there is no longer a HALT maintenance report, which would have meant at the end of my 5 years as a highly accomplished teacher, I would have had to submit a report. That is now gone. All I need now is a declaration about my practice that is signed off by my principal, which is a lot easier.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We really need to be nice to our principals now. We're our best friends. I'm getting a new principal now. He's going to be my new best friend.
Absolutely. Yeah. But not that many people are in general. How many lead teachers are there?
Well, see, that's the statistic, and that really makes people, I think, potentially discouraged when you look at the statistic. There are about 180,000 teachers in New South Wales. As of last year, I've actually published an article on when the last graduates came through, not graduates, but like accredited teachers at HALT level came through. There are 366 HALT teachers. So that's across both highly accomplished and lead. 366. What's the statistic on that, Rob? Can you do that in your head?
Well, what's that? Less than 1%, man.
Yeah, it's less than 1% of teachers. And I don't think they like that statistic. I think they do want to get numbers up, which is why they've had to change. And I obviously looked at this prior to that date. And I think in 2018, there was actually more. There was about 550 or something. Yeah. And so the number's actually gone down. So you want to strike now because it seems like the iron's hot. It looks like they want to accredit people at this level. But in saying that, they're not going to do it for nothing. Like, you have to be at this level. Okay, they're not going to give it out for free. And because there is a financial incentive there now too, they're going to make it tough, but they do want more. They are accreditors. They're not going to drop their standard. You've still got to meet the standard, but the process is more streamlined. Okay, so if you believe you're at the standard, and you've got to believe in yourself. Like, if there's anything that got me through this, is I had to believe I am a highly accomplished teacher. I've done things. I believe in the things I've done. And that got me through it.
Like before, if you are doing more than what's involved in the teaching profession, you are doing things outside of the school, it's definitely something to consider.
Well, that's it. And that's what we're promoting through this channel too. Like, it is a vocation. It is a passion. It is a way of life. If you believe you are an educator, not just a classroom teacher, this is something you should definitely look into.
So with now, can we ask what is the pay bump?
Well, I don't know off the top of my head, okay, what it is. I think, okay, it's just under $10,000.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're highly accomplished, and even more if you get lead. Okay, so there is a pay bump involved. As said, that changed with the enterprise agreement that came into place in 2023. Okay, and it does stack onto your base pay, and that's before any coordinator pay goes on. And that's in my own system I can really only speak for. I can't speak for the independent system, and I can't speak for the public system, but from what I've heard, it's the same case there too. They want to be retaining teachers, okay, that are willing to put more into education. That is what the foundation of this is, who want to be professionals and really expanding upon themselves as educators.
Yeah, because at some point, even you're a proficient teacher, you're constantly doing the same thing all the time. You're reinventing yourself.
Yes.
You're rewriting your notes and examples and trying to be more engaging in with the students. But I guess this takes it beyond that.
It does, it really does. It wants you to be mentoring younger teachers, working with teachers to make everyone grow. Okay, and I think that's something you really got to believe in too. It's not and I really respect that about the process as well. It's not just about you growing as an individual. It's about you wanting to see the growth of others. And that's a classic example of a good leader, isn't it?
And a teacher's a teacher. I mean, even if you're teaching students or you're teaching younger teachers.
Yeah.
Some of the teachers that come work with you would have been your students previously.
Well, that's it.
That can happen.
That point in my career, they're coming back.
Have you had that yet? Or?
Yeah. But we are starting to see an influx of, the ex-students, and they're coming back to the school. And, it's funny because that's my own actual pathway myself. I was an ex-student, came back to the same school. Now I'm seeing them come back too. But, it's good to see that as well, these mature young people coming back, but they still seek mentorship. And, it's great to be at a point in my career where, I can be seen in the mentor. And it's actually one of my goals this year, but we'll do that in another podcast.
Mentoring younger teachers.
I want to be a better mentor this year.
Yeah, well, you've got the qualifications now.
Yeah, see it. I've got the label now.
No pressure.
No pressure.
No, that's really good, man. Very, very proud of you and very proud of this achievement. Great for the podcast too.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. So, with your career, at the end, where would you what's your your final goal?
I don't know. Like I said, I'm at that point in a career. It could go a variety of ways. In the short term, I still want to be in the classroom. We've got the new computing subjects that have come in. I still want to be teaching them. I still want to be working on projects. And I think that's hopefully another thing that I get out of this with being a highly accomplished teacher, the ability to work on more projects. I love working on a good project too. I do like the status aspect, as you've been saying, I'm a highly accomplished teacher now, and we're talking this podcast together. Even that adds a bit of oomph, to this guy might know what he's talking about, eh?
And more than that, obviously.
So there's a bit of that too. So increased chance of project. Maybe as going on, heading into head offices and working with schools and the potential to work towards that lead teacher accreditation. I love to be that, to work at a higher level in education, where I can be working with schools and expand on that. And obviously in my strength of technology and how technology can really benefit education. And it's hot right now too, technology with AI coming in and how the whole landscape is changing.
Absolutely.
So that could be a direction I go.
Yeah, it's great. Well, we'll hear on the podcast, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And look, I guess, probably the final thing I want to say on this too is if you're on the fence, and you're trying to think about what kinds of things should you be thinking about if you are ready to go into this process? I just jotted down a few things you might want to think about, okay? The first thing you've got to ask yourself, why do you want to pursue this? If it's just to get the pay bump, you're not going to get it. Yeah. Okay, you cannot just think of it as not, because it is rigorous, okay? And the marking of it, it is an accreditation-based marking procedure. They are looking, tightly at the evidence you are submitting. Okay, so it needs to be more than that. Okay, so why do you want to pursue a HALT level accreditation? Secondly, what is it about your teaching practice that aligns with the Australian professional standards for teachers? You've got to know them, those 7 standards and the elements that are within them. You've got to know what those standards are, and you've got to be drawing connections between what you're doing and getting in there with them. And it's got to be with at least 20 of them now. Okay, 14 that are mandatory. Can you prove them? You might not be able to show them all straight away, and then during the period that you're going to be doing your high level of accreditation, that is when you might try to work on projects focused on those, hopefully just 5 maybe, that you've got to work on. But you've got to maybe have a solid 15 already achievable. Thirdly, okay, what is it about your teaching practice that is exemplary? Why is it highly accomplished or lead? Okay, what is it you're doing? It can't be imaginary. It's got to be something, and it's got to be evidence-based. You can actually show this and put it into an evidence set. Okay, screenshot it and put it into a document. And that's part of how you prepare yourself for this. Oh, I'm working on this thing. It's highly accomplished. Screenshot, bang, start building your evidence set up. Okay, even when you're doing a PD day. Okay, what are your notes? Notes can be evidence sets. Okay, as we mentioned before, collaborative documents you're working on with your peers. Screenshot that with your peers' collaborative stuff in the version history on the side. Screenshot of that. You're giving a presentation at a meeting. Is there an agenda for that meeting? Screenshot it. Your name is on what part of the agenda you're doing. Screenshot it. Evidence set. Student feedback. Teacher feedback related to things you've created. Evidence set. You've got to be getting evidence, okay, that you can be putting into this evidence set, okay? So gradually, and that can be all stuff you're doing before you start this process in order to make this process a lot easier. All right? I've already alluded to the fact that if you've been in a leadership role or if you're in a middle management role, that will make this process a lot easier because it's kind of a part of your job, the communication and the collaboration. Okay, you can show like records from database systems within your school on things you're doing, but you have to really de-identify all names in there other than your own name. Even if it's logical, like one of the things I actually showed was an episode of the podcast we did, but I had to black out your name and your face.
No.
Okay.
He would love it. Probably a good thing.
All right, but so I had to de-identify Rob, but show my own name and face. Okay, so even if that person would want their name shown, it's still all about you. So just make sure you're de-identifying this. But they actually do have an evidence standard guide that you can look to in what kinds of evidence you could show, okay? So make sure you have the evidence there. And from there, how have you positively influenced student learning and well-being as well as staff learning and well-being? Okay, how can you show that with evidence and data there too, both within your school and beyond your school? Okay, and that's sometimes the hard part.
Because it sounds like some teachers have done this already. Yeah. They just haven't got the recognition.
Yeah.
So if you feel have accomplished this and are doing it, it could be something to take consider serious.
And you've actually said what I think a lot of the teachers' frustrations is because these teachers, to be honest, who are doing this stuff, okay, they're working hard.
Yeah.
To do this stuff, I'm not talking about the accreditation. I mean, just being a teacher.
You're doing it year in, year out.
Yeah, you're doing hard work all the time. And then this is a layer of work on top of that. And the first thing that comes into your mind, and I've spoken with this with my peers who are highly accomplished teachers, but are not accredited at that levels, is why do I need to prove this? Why do I need to prove this? That is the first thing that goes.
You know what? Prove it, get your bonus.
Yeah, and fortunately
corporate world have a bonus.
Yeah.
If you're performing, well, this could be your, yearly bonus.
It is, and you have given yourself, like, by the end of it, it will be worth it, but you've got to do the hard yards. And they've got to have this standard in place. Otherwise, everyone will go for it, and then that diminishes the quality of the accreditation level. So they definitely need to sort out who these higher levels are, So do commit to it. It will be worth it in the end, and now is the time to get into it. But I do feel your frustration when you are saying, I already do all this work, why do I need to do this? And if you can do it with a bunch of peers together, the process, I think, will be a lot more enjoyable. You're not going to be flying as blind. You can support each other. It will be a lot easier.
Okay, mate, congrats again.
Look, thank you very much. If I'm going to say anything in the end, I've got to thank the people that really reached out and helped me, my peers at other schools that gave me evidence to support me, as well as certain people at NESA that helped me at times when I felt like I was struggling. I owe them all a big thank you too. I am very happy to be at the end of it now. Hopefully I can maintain it in 5 years. Okay, but look, best of luck to our peers out there who do want to give
absolutely. And it keeps us in the profession.
It does. It keeps us in the profession. It is good to be recognized as a highly accomplished educator. If there's anything that we hope from this podcasting too, is the hard work of our fellow educators. And if they can give themselves a higher level of accreditation and this can help them, well, that's a bonus for us, isn't it?
Absolutely. Hopefully we get 10% of the teachers in working in New South Wales get this highly accomplished.
That's it, eh? Best of luck, guys, okay?
Okay. Thank you all. I'm Robert Namoski.
I'm Chris Kalodikis.
And we'll see you all next time.
Take care, guys. See ya.
Bye. Nailed it.